Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another figure showcase special. And I've decided that I'm going to try to do these on occasion just to give you comparisons maybe between multiple versions of the same characters if I do own some older versions and I get a new one in, or when a line kind of concludes, or at least I've picked up all the figures that I'm planning on picking up for that given line, just to show you how they look together. And I figure it'll be nice to kind of look at them in a different environment outside of that controlled setup that Hot Toys has its secret base or that you see at some of these events. So for today's episode, we're going to be looking at Venom and Carnage. When I looked at the Venom from the first movie and I did that retrospective review, there was no denying that in the movie, he was an imposing character. And as a figure, he's equally imposing, especially when you put in all of the attachments. But then you bring up the video game version, and I know there were a lot of conversations happening everywhere about the size and whether or not he was oversized. What did we think? And look, that piece to me looks gorgeous. But for me, I'm definitely sticking to the cinematic universe version of figures. And I think that what you're going to see here is that when you look at Venom and when you look at Carnage, they're already massive pieces. And key is the Venom from the game is going to be bigger than this. So keep that in mind. And look, I remember when these figures went on order, Hot Toys had these incredible displays of Secret Base, and I thought, why not try to recreate these to see how the figures look together? But before doing that, let's look at scale. And this was established in the promotional shots, but in person you can see how much of a disparity there is. So you have the Venom from the first movie with Carnage and with the upgraded suit Spidey from the Far From Home line. So when I did my review for the Carnage, not gonna lie, he went back into the box just until my display cases come in, so I didn't get a chance to compare him with the Venom. But seeing all three figures together, it's almost shocking how much taller he is than Venom. By comparison, that figure, which I already thought looked huge, is actually just slightly taller than your Spidey. So it just gives you a sense of scale between all three pieces. And I don't blame Hot Toys again for the huge swing in height differences. It's more than anything related to the design of the characters from Sony and Marvel. Other thing, in hand, I really love that Carnage design. The body just has so much more detail. It's amazing, and the head is just impressive. I like the Venom sculpt, but looking at the two together, I think the Carnage looks just so much more vicious and detailed. But again, pieces definitely complement each other. And this is again with none of the attachments. But part of the fun for both of these pieces was the pure array of accessories included, especially for Carnage. So posed together, and Spidey will make another appearance here at the end, but let's focus on Venom and Carnage. They're just really complementary pieces, and if you have these at the end, you'll see the fully loaded versions, which I'm calling the ones with the crazy arms and all the tendrils. But even with just a few of the accessories, they just look disturbingly gorgeous. Carnage and Venom both include that oversized blade element. One with Venom looks almost fine-tuned and refined with that nice blade edge, while the Carnage one, going along with his insanity and potential lack of control, has that edge that's all jagged and ill-formed. But what you see is how vicious it looks, and I'm not surprised even in the movie how Venom was a little concerned with going up against Carnage. Now, one thing that surprised me here was the balance on these. You can get some great poses here without requiring the stand. I will say I tried pushing these a little to try to get Venom in a kind of prone position with Carnage looming over, and while you can do it, it's not the easiest, nor is it the most posable, to be honest. The pivot on the shoulder ball joint doesn't really give you the range you would want for a super dynamic pose. I mean, you get the arms out about to launch into an attack pose well. That works great, but don't expect to really have anything insane here. And if you look at the product description, Venom does only come with 20 points of articulation. It's a lot for a big figure, but some of the smaller, more conventional pieces have about 30 points of articulation. So don't expect a Spidey level piece here. But here's the other thing. You can get creative. Like, I wanted to do a pose with Venom hanging off Carnage and grappling, and with a little patience, I managed to get them really looking decent. And I also had them without a base. That was just for the shop, by the way. I would not recommend you do this for the long term. Both figures are surprisingly heavy, and if they topple, I feel like your Venom would be okay, but your Carnage with all the little tendrils would be in major trouble. But still shows you that you can push these a little bit beyond your standard museum pose. Now, let's get to my personal favorite, and that's the fully loaded look here. To say that these are insane is an understatement. There is so much to unpack here, especially with that Carnage. They both look great, but again, that Carnage does run a slight risk of being almost too busy. But that's just because, again, there's so much going on there. And look, while these two aren't perfect figures, there's no denying that visually they are impressive. And you can really start seeing that with all the accessories loaded up. And as a negative, you can see that they do take up a huge amount of real estate. And thinking down the road to how I want to permanently display them, fully loaded is the most appealing, but the question is, can I accommodate the space needed to show them in their full glory? We'll have to see on that one, but these two are just monsters. One thing I didn't totally flag last time that I think is worth quickly mentioning, for both figures, the tendrils on the back. I love the connections and the way they kind of show Venom and Carnage's skin pulling out to create the tentacles, but you do have to be careful to get the rubber to sit nicely together. I found if you didn't take care, you could easily have the tendrils pop out since they don't fully socket into the back. But I'm not gonna lie, again, Carnage to me just stands out so much more, and I love how the tips of his tendrils all have these unique weapons, again showing him to be much more aggressive. And I hate to say this, he kind of makes Venom look like a small nuisance by comparison. But then throw in Spidey and you can just imagine the potential here. And look, Marvel's in trouble. There's no denying that, right? Even me as a huge fan, I can see it, right? The writing's on the wall. Loki Season 2 was awesome, but there seems to just be a general lack of interest in Marvel at this point. And I think they need to do a little reset. Not of the universe, but of their movies, and focus on quality pieces. So, for example, next year we're just getting Deadpool 3. So chances of seeing a Venom versus Spidey movie may be way off until they get their stuff in order. But at least in figure form, we can create that illusion. Although seeing both Carnage and Venom, it's hard to believe that Spidey can win. I mean, I know he does beat them in the comics, but I feel like a battle between these characters in a movie would have to be visceral and bloody. I don't think it would be an easy victory for Spidey at all, which would be awesome to see, actually. But that's me venturing into daydreams. So look, this was just a quick look at Venom and Carnage together, with a little Spidey thrown in for good measure, and I'm sure if you have both of these, you are probably as impressed as I am by the visual pop they have, individually and as a set. So again, just a little attempt to showcase a few pieces together. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.